Hi everyone, Janie here. Welcome back to my garden. I hope you all are having a fantastic day today. I am out here sitting on the ground because I was trying to get really good lighting and the sun is beaming off of my greenhouse right into my eyes if I sit on the couch. So that is why I am sitting on the ground right now. It's actually pretty comfortable. I have my computer over here on the fire pit. It's a good spot. You guys might see me in future videos in this spot because it's actually working out pretty well. So today's video, what I wanted to do is I wanted to do a question and answer session. So there's a couple reasons why I wanted to do a question and answer session. I've done a couple of them thus far in the history of my channel, and a lot of them have been focused on me and, you know, like my background, my history with gardening, all that kind of stuff. I really wanted to do question and answer sessions that, you know, I can answer some questions about me, but mainly answer questions about gardening and the things that I feature on my channel. The main reason why I want to do this, and I apologize for this, is just not being able to keep up with all the comments. You guys are wonderful and you leave wonderful comments and I try and answer them as much as possible. However, the technical questions that are in the comment section, it takes me a really long time to answer them, like either on my phone or on the computer. And in text, I feel like I can't get across as much information as I want to get across. You all know that I can talk on and on and on and on about something. So I feel like it's easier to do it in a question and answer session like this. Very similar to Laura from Garden Answer, Laura and Aaron. I think that they do a great job. I learn a lot from their question and answer sessions when they answer technical questions. And I'm hoping it to be kind of similar to that, just focused on what information I can provide for you guys here in California in Zone 9B, or, you know, whatever questions you have about whatever I've shown on my channel. So when you guys do have questions, please go ahead and leave them in the comment section underneath the video. I will go through for the rest of the month and I will screenshot those questions and then I will try and answer them on this question and answer session. So of course, I'm not going to be able to get to everyone, but a lot of questions, specifically the technical questions, are pretty similar. They kind of overlap. So I'll kind of just grab one of them and it might answer the same question that you have as well. So hopefully this will help. Then the second part of this monthly video, I've been wanting to do this for a while. I wanted to add in a viewer tip section. The tips, if you guys haven't gone through and looked at the comment section, not only in my videos, but the other gardening channels on YouTube or even like Instagram, there are so many fantastic tips that you can get from other gardeners that just are nice enough just to leave a little bit of a tip. And I think that because we're a whole gardening community and we like sharing information with each other, I think that it's a really good resource to learn things from gardeners who maybe have like cracked a code on a certain plant in their zone or have learned something because they've been gardening for 50 years or something like that. So that's the same thing I want to add into these videos. They're going to be question and answer sessions, but also viewer tips, and hopefully we all can learn quite a bit from these videos that I'm planning to do once a month at the end of the month, kind of as a look back on all my videos the previous month. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and I hope you guys learn a lot from this. When, you know, I've always told you guys when I've learned about gardening, when I was obsessed and trying to learn everything I could about gardening, YouTube was a fantastic resource for me, and I would just watch all the videos and I would definitely leave comments asking questions, you know, if I was confused about anything. And it really, really helped me as a gardener, you know, to be able to understand the concept of what I was trying to learn. So hopefully this helps all of you. So let me get started. These questions are in no particular order. If they do pertain to a particular video in the past month, I will let you guys know the video, but I just went through and I just grabbed all the interesting questions and the frequent questions that have been asked quite a few times. So the first question I have is from Timothy. Timothy says, I am a new subscriber to your channel. Love your garden. Thank you, Timothy. I have a question about your honeysuckle. I live in zone 4, mid-state Vermont. Will this winter over okay? If so, do you cut it back to the ground? And if and it reblooms the next year on new wood, or does it bloom on old wood? So this is a really great question, Timothy. Thank you for subscribing. I really appreciate it. It depends on what type of honeysuckle you're thinking of. The type of honeysuckle that I have all over in my garden is Hall's japonica honeysuckle. And according to Monrovia is just one grower of this plant. There's a lot of different growers of this plant. Monrovia claims that it is hardy zones 4 through 11, which is fantastic. That's almost everybody. So it is going to be hardy in your zone. However, the Hall's japonica is going to be hardy in your zone. If you look at some of the other honeysuckle varieties, they are not always hardy down to zone 4. So just check the variety that you're looking at. If you're looking at Hall's japonica, it definitely is hardy in zone 4. If you grow honeysuckle in a colder environment, usually honeysuckle is an evergreen or a semi-evergreen, meaning here in zone B, my honeysuckle keeps its leaves over the winter, but they don't look very good. It is not like, it will lose about half of its leaves, and the leaves that are on there, you can tell that they're kind of old, they're kind of ragged, but it still does keep some leaves. So it does provide some winter interest, but it's not like a beautiful, like a camellia or something like that in the winter. As you get colder and colder, the honeysuckle will act more like a deciduous plant. And I'm sure down to zone 4, it will probably lose all its leaves and it'll probably be just sticks. As for pruning it back, it's up to you. You can absolutely prune it back and size control it. Most honeysuckle blooms on new wood. So, you know, you can, honeysuckle's so easy to grow. Like you can chop it back and it will grow back in the same season and flower and all that kind of stuff. So it just depends on how big you want your honeysuckle to grow. If you want to just leave it and leave the old stems, you'll start getting little shoots off of those old stems, and then on those new shoots, that's where the blooms will come. Or you can cut it all the way back and let it come back in the spring. So I hope that helps, Timothy. Again, this is for Hall's japonica honeysuckle only. All the other varieties, I'm sure that there are a couple that are hardy down to zone 4, but the kind that I have is definitely hardy down to zone 4. So you should be good to go. Okay, next question is from Pam MacArthur, and this question pertained to Michael Glassman's garden tour. Early on in the month, the day after my garden tour, I did a garden tour of Michael Glassman, who is an award-winning landscape architect. He is the coolest person I've met. He is such a fantastic human being, and he was kind enough to let us come in, see the inside of his house, the outside of his house, his garden, and he's so great, you guys. So the main question that I got on that video, not only people saying how amazing his garden was, and it really is amazing, is everyone would like to know, like Pam, I would really like to know what paint color is his fence, please. So he did say it quickly in the video, but I think that we just kind of skipped past it really quickly. So I did ask him, I just texted him this morning and asked him specifically what it was, and I'll put a picture. He says it's the Cabot semi-solid stain and sealer, and he says the color that he stains it with, so basically you go to Ace Hardware, you find that on the counter, and then you take it up to the paint counter and have them tint it with Cordovan brown stain. And he did say he did add a little bit of black into it, but you don't have to. You can just do the Cordovan browns. Cordovan, Cordovan brown, which is a very, very dark brown. His fence almost looked black. It was so beautiful. A lot of people will ask me the color of my fence. My fence is bare slate. So it's not black, it's slate, but it's pretty much the darkest, one of the darkest colors that they have in a stain. I used paint and stain. It's kind of a combination. It's such a fantastic choice. I am so happy that I decided to stain my fence a dark black. It's so beautiful, and it really makes the foliage pop. In Michael Glassman's yard, it made everything absolutely beautiful. And then my friend Robbie from Visit Our Garden YouTube channel, he is in the process of staining his fence slate, the same color as mine, and it looks gorgeous. It's a scary thing to do, to go all in and do that on your fence, but it's absolutely beautiful. All right, next question is from Svetlana. She says, hi, beautiful garden. Question for the question and answer. Could you please share the exact recipe, what you did with your peonies during the winter months? How much ice you put, how often, how long? Thank you. So that's a great question, Svetlana. I get that question quite often, and even on old videos, I get a lot of people asking me that. And this question pertains to the peonies that I put in my garden. I put some tubers into my garden last year, about a year and a half ago, and then my neighbor's mother passed away, and she was a peony lover, and so I inherited from them a whole bunch of pretty full-grown peonies. I also purchased 2 peonies from the store. I'm sorry, I can see my dog stealing strawberries at this moment. Stanley, stop! Anyway, sorry. So I also did get 2 peonies kind of in 3-gallon pots, and I got those from Home Depot, and I put them in my cottage garden as well. The big concern is having enough chill hours in warm climates. A lot of times people say that you can't grow peonies in warm climates because we don't get enough chill hours over the winter, kind of very similar to growing blueberries. And so to answer Svetlana, it's not a simple recipe that I can tell you all because it kind of depends. It depends on where you've planted your peonies, how cold that your season is, that your winter season is, what variety of peony you have, how old your peony is. It really, really depends. And let me just go over a couple things that I think about when I think about this. So first of all, you need to know where you live and what your zone is, and about how many chill hours you have. So I live in Davis, California, Northern California, and fortunately for California, we do have a website where they keep track of our chill hours every year. And this is provided by UC Davis, which is right by me, so it's pretty easy. And I just looked it up, and last year we got about 115 chill hours. Now for peonies on average need 500 to 1,000 chill hours to bloom the next season. So you think, okay, I only got 115 chill hours, but peonies need minimum 500 chill hours on average. How in the world did I get my peonies to bloom this season and bloom really beautifully? And there's a couple different ways and tips and tricks that I used. First off, I do want to say chill hours doesn't mean below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, or that's 0 degrees Celsius. What it means is it's anywhere below 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's really 32 degrees to 45 degrees. It's that range that you're kind of looking for. So you have to think about that depending on what zone you live in and how close you get to that. So it's pretty common for us here to get around the 40s, the high 30s, 40s, right? But that is air temperature. That's not soil temperature. Soil temperature, it takes a little bit longer to either chill down or warm up. So if you plant your peonies, say 2 inches down below the surface of the soil, you're going to be relying on soil temperature alone, really, to get those chill hours to allow them to chill enough. If you plant your peonies a little bit higher, almost soil level, so that the eyes of the peonies are basically touching the air, you're going to be able to rely on the air chill temperature a lot more than the soil chill temperature. I hope that makes sense. So here where we live, the soil often doesn't cool down enough to be able to get below 45 degrees, but the air very often in the winter cools down enough, and I'm sure it's closer to those 500 chill hours. So the shallower you can plant your peonies, the warmer you are, the warmer zone you have, the shallower you can plant your peonies, the more chill hours you're going to get over the winter season, which is very, very helpful for having them bloom. So that's first thing, is make sure that you're planting your peonies nice and shallowly. Hopefully that's a word, shallowly. Secondly, you want to choose the right varieties, or you want to try to choose the right varieties. There are so many different varieties of peonies. There are herbaceous, there are woody, there are hybrids of each, and they all kind of require a different amount of chill hours, and they also bloom at different times in the season. So think of this kind of like you think of tulips. Tulips that bloom really early in the winter or early spring, those are naturally going to require less chill hours than the ones that bloom later in the season, because those tulip bulbs are going to need more chill hours, more time sitting in that cold ground before they break dormancy and they start blooming. So anything that blooms earlier on in the season, if you look at it and you say early blooming or late winter, early spring blooming, you know most likely that flower is going to need less chill hours as compared to another flower, another peony that blooms late spring or mid-spring. So if you're in a warm environment, erring on the side of early blooming varieties is really going to help you. It's really going to help you because those varieties are most likely going to need a lower amount of chill hours across the board of peonies, but also they're going to bloom when we're still cool enough, and it's going to allow the peonies to bloom properly and not fry the second that they come out. So I would always look for peonies that have early blooming season, or they specifically say low chill hours. So I went through and I looked the lowest chill hours that I could find. I just found like 5 of them just to show you guys. Festivum maxima is a variety that needs low chill hours. I'm not going to be able to read this. Edulis superba, Felix Kraus, Sarah Bernhardt, and Monsieur Jules Elie. Those 5 are just a quick Google search that I found that are varieties that need low chill hours, and they're all early bloomers as well. So if you guys can't find any information on low chill hour peonies, go ahead and look up early blooming varieties of peonies, and those are most likely going to be low chill hours and will do better for us here in warm climates. The last thing that I want to say about growing peonies in warm climates is using the ice method. And I read about this. I found an article about growing peonies in zones 8 and 9. And it was a really interesting article. I'll try and find it and link it below. But I would encourage all of you that want to grow peonies in warm climates to read this article because it's really, really helpful. But one tip that they did have is they said to go ahead and put ice on your peony while they're still dormant in the winter. Do it once a week in December and half of January. So about 6 weeks putting ice on your peony. Now, what I did is I only ended up doing it 3 times this past winter season. So to answer your questions, Svetlana, I only put ice on my peonies 3 times. And the reason why I did that is because I could check our weather and I could see that the whole week was around the 40s to high 30s, you know, and so I knew that those peonies were planted shallowly, they were getting enough chill that week, and I didn't need to put the ice on. So I really only put the ice on when it was like in the upper 40s or maybe even 50s or something like that. So it's not a particular science. There's no particular recipe. You just kind of have to understand what's going on, what that peony needs. Get a low chill hour needed peony, one that blooms early in the season. Try and find your chill hours, your average chill hours. If you can't find that, just kind of look at the temperature and see where you're going to be below 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Plant the peonies really, really shallowly so that they can get the air temperature as opposed to the soil temperature and get the benefit of them growing in really cool areas. And then choose the right varieties. I think I already said that, but basically choose the right varieties and use the ice method. If it's a really warm winter, we had a really cool winter this past winter, but if it's a really warm winter, go ahead and use the ice method, and that might help you quite a bit. So that was a very long-winded answer. I think it was a 10-minute answer. This is why I can't type everything down, because I just have too much to say about these things. So I hope that helped all of you that had questions about peonies. All right, next question. I don't think this pertained to a particular video. This is from Jeannie. She says, love your content. Thank you, Jeannie. In another episode, you talked about using Slugo for snails. How do you water/fertilize so that the Slugo doesn't get mushy and moldy? And then Peggy Ann from Canada, she says, great question. I would like to know too, as mine got moldy as well. So, Slugo is what I use to deal with slugs and snails, and I think it is Very, very helpful. Now, one thing I do want to say is Slugo has iron phosphate in it. I am not talking about the old kind of snail bait, which is metaldehyde. That stuff is really bad. It's really bad for dogs. It's really bad for humans. That stuff, I don't even know if it's legal to sell anymore. But I'm not talking about regular snail bait. I'm talking about Slugo Plus that has iron phosphate, and I think it does have some spinosad in it. And iron phosphate is a naturally occurring nutrient that's already in plant soil. So I really don't have a problem with using Slugo Plus in my garden. I think it's really helpful, and I think it really does combat the slugs and snail problems. And we had I'm still dealing with slugs and snails in the end of May, which is crazy. That is not normal for us at all. Usually by March, we're not dealing with slugs and snails anymore. It's just been really cold and kind of wet this season. So I'm sure those of you that live in colder environments and wetter environments deal with it quite a lot. So to answer Jeannie's question, how do I stop it from getting mushy and moldy? And the answer is I don't. And I don't stop it from getting mushy and moldy. So when you sprinkle Slugo Plus, it's in a pelletized form. And that pelletized form, from what I learned, it does have some grains that attracts the slugs to come and get it, and then they ingest the iron phosphate, and then that causes them to feel kind of not good, and then they stop eating, and then they basically just wither away and die, right? That's how it works and how it kills the slugs and snails. But that grain, I think that attracts the mold. I read somewhere that it said the mold is actually a naturally occurring mold that's in the dirt, and it's attracted to the excess moisture that the pellets hold after everything else dries out. So it's really nothing to worry about, honestly. That's why I don't really worry about it. Yes, it doesn't look very pretty. I try not to put too much Slugo on when I'm baiting for slugs. I try and put as little as possible unless I'm having a really bad issue and it's like eating everything. Then I'll put a full ring, like a solid ring around the plant just to protect it. But for the most part, I just try and put a little bit, and then they're going to eat that, or it's going to dissolve, and then you're not going to see it anymore. What they do say, what Slugo Plus, or I think it's Monterey is the brand that makes Slugo Plus. What they do say is that you do want to put it on soil that's kind of moist, right? If it's moist, it's good, but you don't want it to be totally wet. So how I do it, Monday is my fertilizing day, and Monday is the day that I come around with my hose end sprayer and I spray everything, right? But then after Monday, the only time that my plants get overhead water it's on Monday. It's not till the next Monday. So on Monday is my fertilizing day, and then Tuesday is my pest control day. So if I was going to sprinkle Slugo, it would be on Tuesday. So it would be the day after that I sprayed everything from overhead. And then the only other way that my plants get water is through drip irrigation. And so that's really not going to get the pellets very wet. It really doesn't rain a lot here, so I don't have to worry about them molding a lot. So I don't think I can help you guys too much to answer this question, but I did kind of look it up to see, and a lot of people said, like, there's just not much you can do. Just use a little bit of it, expect it to get a little bit moldy, but even if it's moldy, it still does attract the slugs and snails. It works perfectly well. It's just a naturally occurring mold. So if you don't have rain very much like I do, time your pest control for right after whenever you're going to overhead water, and then try and use drip irrigation, which is better for your plants anyway, and that should be a really good way to keep the mold down. But also just I wouldn't worry about it too much. I know it doesn't look beautiful, but it's not going to hurt anything, and it's going to be better than the slugs attacking your plants. All right, so next question is Multi-Proud Mother. I love that name. She asks, I thought that one is not supposed to top spray fertilizer such that it gets on the leaves and blooms. And this was in regards to my fertilizing video, how I fertilize my annuals. I took you all around in that video, and I showed you how I fertilize my proven winners, mainly my proven winners annuals, some other annuals as well. And I use Proven Winners water-soluble fertilizer in my hose end sprayer, which happens to be made by Miracle-Gro, but I do use the Proven Winners sprayer. So I got this question quite a lot, and you are all totally right. Like there are different types of water-soluble fertilizer. There are some, one very common variety, which is the Miracle-Gro variety, that is a foliar fertilizer. You can spray the leaves and the leaves will actually soak in those nutrients and feed that plant. So it's not bad to spray the leaves on that. Yeah, you don't want to spray the blooms because it's going to kind of smash them down and everything. When it comes to the Proven Winners fertilizer, it's kind of hard. I've actually even asked Proven Winners if it's a foliar spray, and I couldn't get really a straight answer, but the directions for the Proven Winners water-soluble fertilizer is to soak the surrounding root area, the soil around the root area. So that leads me to think that it is a root spray. You wanna saturate the roots with this fertilizer. So that is the right way to do it. I just get too tired. So I need a hose end sprayer with a really long tube because it takes me about a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes to fertilize all the annuals in my garden. And I just can't bend over that whole time. I just can't do it. It hurts my back. I get too tired and I just wouldn't fertilize as often as I want to if I bent over all the time. So I should have specified that in the video. Yes, ideally you want to lift up the plant and you want to spray underneath, especially if you're using the Proven Winners fertilizer. I have to be honest, I rarely do that. I do it if I really want the flowers to look beautiful right after I fertilize it, because sometimes when I fertilize it, they'll kind of get smashed down a little bit. We're so dry here, I don't have to worry about the flowers getting moldy or dying. I'm sure if you guys lived in a more humid environment than I do, it would probably be more important. So basically, to answer those many questions and sweet comments that I got about not overhead spraying the fertilizer, you all are totally correct. I'm just being lazy, and it's kind of just an energy conservation thing for me because I just could not bend over like that for 45 minutes once a week. It would just be too much for me. So I just kind of pick my battles, and it's been totally fine for me for overhead spraying, but the right way to do it is to spray underneath if you're going to use the Proven Winners fertilizer. All right, so the next question pertains to the video that I did on the Moon Garden, Megan's Moon Garden, where Michael Glassman was the landscape architect. It was such a beautiful garden. It was so pretty. It was prettier in real life, I have to tell you. I tried my hardest to get all of it in, but you know, when you're standing there and you see the whole thing, it was just so pretty. So Kimberly asks, she says, I enjoyed your presentation. Thank you, Kimberly. I love the tall trees resembling the Italian cypress. Can anyone tell me the name of the tree? It was said, but I couldn't quite get it. I had a lot of people ask that question, and what Michael said to me is that it was a hornbeam. Hornbeam. And I was looking it up and I was trying to find the exact variety because some hornbeams grow to about 40 feet wide. I'm pretty sure that what she has is the upright European hornbeam, or Carpinus betulus fastigata. I'm sure I said that wrong, I'm sorry. But basically the sizing for this is 25 to 40 feet high and less than 15 feet wide, which would make sense based on where they did the plantings. Really, really pretty, hardy zones 7 through 10. I will put a link down below. This is from Landscape Plant Source where I found this information. It looks like a beautiful tree and I absolutely want one in my garden. I think it will be really pretty just to have one standing straight up, but a really, really pretty tree and a really interesting option that I don't think we see a lot of. So I wanted to answer that question because I got a lot of those questions on that video. Next question is more of a general technical question. This is from Plants and Cats 5. I'm right there with you. Plants and cats, yes. Do you get black bean aphids? I planted a rose of Sharon last fall, and I recently noticed it is covered with thousands of aphids. I'm so sorry, that's a bummer. I blast them off with a hose daily and then drenched the plant with neem oil, but I can't get rid of them. Any suggestions/experience? So I wanted to answer this. First of all, I haven't gotten black bean aphids, but one of the things that I learned in my Master Gardener's course this is that it doesn't matter what type of aphids you have. They made it clear that an aphid is an aphid is an aphid. It doesn't matter if they're red or black or green. They should all be treated the same way. So you're doing the right things. You're doing what you should do, blasting them off with water, then putting some neem oil on it, which is fantastic. The other thing that you can think about doing is planting some pollinator. Oh my gosh, this carpenter bee just fell. This giant carpenter bee just fell right there. Oh, that scared me. Okay, sorry, I tried to get a video of it, but it already flew away. So the other thing that you can do, speaking of carpenter bee, the other thing that you can do is you can plant pollinator attracting plants, right? So you want to plant companion plants next to it that's going to attract pollinators that are going to eat those aphids, right? Like plants that lacewings like, or plants that ladybugs like, things like that. And that's not going to be a quick fix, but that's going to be something that's going to help you in the long run. I hate to say this, the best way to do it is to put some gloves on and go through and just squeeze them all off, pinch them all off. That's what I do whenever I have aphids on my bougainvillea or on my ivy. I've found it is the best way to do it. I do supplement my garden with ladybugs. I do buy 1 or 2 containers of ladybugs every year, and I release them, and I know that most of them fly away, but ever since I started doing that, I've noticed a significant decrease in pests that I have around my garden. I think that that's also because I have a lot of pollinator-friendly plants, but try going and getting some beneficial insects and releasing them and see if that helps. I think the most important thing to say to you is to not get frustrated about having aphids. They're going to go away eventually. It's going to take care of itself eventually. They've just decided that they really like that plant, and so they're going to go for it. But eventually it's going to, as long as you don't spray anything too strong that's going to kill other beneficial bugs, eventually the problem is going to correct themselves. Those aphids are going to bring in the beneficial bugs, and those beneficial bugs are going to know that that is where there's a really yummy aphid snack for them. So it's going to correct itself eventually. So just be really patient, keep doing what you're doing, try and increase the diversity of your garden. And I would say don't spray the strong stuff, the really strong pesticides, because I've done that before. I will totally admit, when I was a novice gardener, I would see white flies or I would see aphids, and I would spray the really strong stuff. But then what I noticed is that would kill everything else, and then everything was off its cycle, off its balance for too long, and it was a constant mess that I had to stay on top of. So just let everything calm down, let nature take its course. You're doing the right thing. Get out there and do some mechanical pest control of squeezing those aphids, pinching them off, and that should really help you. So hopefully that helps, and try not to get too frustrated. All right, so that is it for the technical questions. I'm sure this video is going to be way too long. I apologize about that. I told you guys I can just talk and talk and talk about these things. That's why I can't type them down. So now, this part of the video, I wanted to get into viewers' tips. Tips from you all, you fantastic gardeners. You all have so much information, and I appreciate you sharing it with all of us. And I really want to encourage you to continue sharing it, because it is so helpful for me, and I know it's so helpful for everybody else that reads your comments at the same time. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to read some of these comments that you all have, just in an effort to try and teach somebody something. So the first one is from Critical Reader 4160. He or she says, and this is in regards to my cottage garden where I was talking about my Junior Walker catmint. I have Junior Walker catmint out there, and I way overplanted it because I thought of the name Junior Walker, and I thought, oh, it must be small, so I'm going to plant 9 of them. And now it's totally taken over, which is beautiful, but Junior Walker catmint still gets pretty big. So what Critical Reader wanted to say was Walker's Low, which is what Junior Walker is made off of. Walker's Low is named after a place in England called Walker's Low. I did not know that. It has nothing to do with low growing. Junior is often used, at least in the United States, to mean or denote a smaller version of, but it really means the son of. The cultivar was probably bred in the US, but in California, things grow bigger. I remember the standard warning we were given that if David Austin said a rose grew 3 to 4 feet, you could expect it to be a good 6 feet in California. I loved this. This was fantastic. This was really good advice for those of us in California or other warm climates, but also a really good reason for us to kind of look at the history of whatever plant we're planting. When I planted my Gertrude Jekyll rose, I really researched that rose and really tried to understand the meaning behind the name of that rose, and it was just, I loved learning about that. So hearing what Critical Reader had to say about Walker's Low and Junior Walker, I think was really helpful. I wish I had known this before I bought 9 of my Junior Walker Catmins, but you know, that's not a bad problem to have. I have too much Catmin. It's totally fine. So anyways, I thought this was super interesting and I wanted to share it with all of you. All right, next viewer tip is from Jo. Jo is fantastic. She always gives so many good tips. If you ever see one of her comments in the comments section, read it, because she obviously is a fantastic gardener. Jo, I think you're from New Zealand or Australia. One of those. Correct me on whichever one it is. I apologize. So Jo says, the Chelsea chop is the best way to deadhead. This was about my deadheading video. She says, cut off half of the dead blooms, leave some, then when the new blooms are showing, chop the other half. It's less stress on the plant and still have some color instead of none for 4 weeks or so. That is a great tip. I have heard of the Chelsea chop. I thought the Chelsea chop was you cut the whole thing off at the bottom, but this makes more sense. So thank you for explaining that. So the Chelsea chop is something that I will definitely look into for deadheading, but I thought that this was really interesting information. I think the Chelsea chop is much more common in the UK and maybe in Australia or New Zealand where Jo is from, but it's not, I don't think it's very common in the United States. So I thought that was interesting, and I think that that is something I'm going to look more into, and maybe you guys will look more into it as well. Next viewer tip is from Donald. He says, Sensation honeysuckle far exceeds in fragrance to hulls. Try it. So I just wanted to leave this in. I've never actually smelled Sensation honeysuckle. I'm sure it's wonderful. I love Hall's japonica honeysuckle. It smells so fantastic out in my back garden right now. It smells beautiful. So if Sensation honeysuckle is even better, then fabulous, Donald. I would like to try it someday, and maybe those of you who are looking for honeysuckle can try that variety. You know, I just don't want to say like Hall's japonica is the best. It's just the one that I'm familiar with. Donald obviously is familiar with Sensation, so I wanted to share that. All right, then we have Suzanne. Suzanne is giving me a tip. I just did my back garden tour and I showed you guys my mess underneath my bird feeders where all the seeds have come down and have sprouted, and now I literally have a lawn underneath my bird feeders, and I'm very annoyed about it. But a lot of you guys had this tip. I just picked Suzanne's. She says, the best solution to your birdseed problem is the No Mess blend from Wild Birds Unlimited. It looks like there is one in Sacramento. You can also order online. There are no shells, so none of the seeds will germinate. I get tons of different species of birds from small to large that devour the seeds. You are using an inexpensive seed mixture that is a waste of money. Yeah, I am. Most birds don't eat the tiny seeds, which is millet. It is a filler for the mixture that turns into grass in your landscape. The No Mess blend is more expensive, but there is no waste and no weeds for you to deal with. It is worth it if you like keeping your garden weed-free. Love your garden and your channel. What a fantastic comment, Suzanne. I am going to, what did you say? Wild Birds Unlimited, and I am definitely going to buy it. I have heard of this stuff, the No Mess, but I honestly didn't think about the seeds not germinating if there's no shell. I thought that the birds would just push the seeds out like they already do, and then it would germinate anyway. I thought the no mess was just for the shells. So this makes way more sense. Thank you for clarifying it. I will be using this from now on. Yes, that was a very cheap bird seed. It was the only thing. I think we were at Walmart, and it was the only thing that Walmart had for bird seed at the time. So we were just I was trying to go through that to use it, but I think I'll be throwing it away and just getting this new stuff. So fantastic tip, and thank you to the rest of you that had this tip for me as well. Okay, finally, last viewer's tip is from Dawn. Dawn is great. Dawn gives a lot of really good tips, just like Joe. Dawn says, you make a very key point in gardening. Don't be afraid to fail. I make myself try at least one plant every year that I'm not sure how well it will do in my space. I feel like this is expanding my gardening chops immensely. Always try something new every year. This year, I am trying beneficial nematodes and other good bugs and trying to better assess pest damage and doing a better job of IPM, which is integrated pest management. Usually I either bury my head in the sand about it or reach for the neem oil. Dawn, you are fantastic. That is such a good tip. Try something new every year that really stretches your boundaries. I think that is wonderful to live by. I think that is something that's going to keep us growing as gardeners, and I am super excited to hear how those beneficial nematodes do for you. My neighbor across the street, he used beneficial nematodes in his garden, and he just raved about how good it is. I am not very familiar with beneficial nematodes, but I think it is a really cool thing to get into. So I just wanted to share this with all of you because I think it is such a fantastic suggestion. Try something that's out of your comfort zone. Try something that might not be in your USDA zone because it might work really well for your garden and you might not even realize it. Just try something new in your garden and you might be surprised what fantastic things you can do. So thank you, Dawn. Thank you for sharing that with all of us. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video, this May question and answer video and viewer tips video. Please keep sending in those questions as well as those tips for all the other gardeners that watch our videos. It's just so fantastic, you guys. I love this community. It's so much fun. It's so much fun to keep learning things about gardening and learning things from all of you all around the world. I really, really appreciate it. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you all have a chance to get in your garden today.